use. The site features a collection of equestrian buildings in the northwestern corner of the site, fenced paddock areas across the western part of the site, and an open area of rough grazing occupying the east of the site, as highlighted again on the screen. The site is within the greenbelt and within a low-risk flood area. There is a moderate slope across the southern part of the site. The application proposes a hospice and an enabling development of 50 detached dwellings. The proposed hospice would be delivered by St Luke's Hospice, a registered charity which provides specialist palliative care to residents in Basel and Thurrock. The building will comprise a gross internal area of 1,407. Sorry, John, that's perfect. The building would be L-shaped, planned with accommodation arranged over 2 stories, featuring 6 bedrooms, a relatives bedroom, garden rooms, a laundry, an assisted bathroom, toilets, kitchen, offices, pharmacy, reception area, including shop, cafe, and ancillary plants and storerooms. At the first floor level, the building would comprise offices, counselling rooms, specialist clinic, ancillary toilets, and waiting areas. The application is presented on the basis that the development of 50 dwellings is necessary as enabling development in order to deliver the hospice. The dwellings are shown to occupy the western part of the site, comprising substantial 3, 4, and 5 bedroom properties, each with a double garage set within generous plots. A total of 10 house types are proposed, with a gross internal areas ranging from 112 to 285 square metres. All of the dwellings would be for private sale. In addition to the hospice and residential development, the application proposes 6.2 hectares of public open space. The site is located in the greenbelt, and proposals constitute inappropriate development. Inappropriate development is by definition harmful, with reference to both national and local planning policies, and substantial weight should be given to this factor. The amount and scale of the development proposed would considerably reduce the openness of the greenbelt and conflict with a number of purposes for including land within a greenbelt. The onus is therefore on the applicant to demonstrate very special circumstances that clearly outweigh the harm that would be caused by the development.
I hear what you say, but how does that then lead overall to the almost negating the comments by the Highways Department in terms of this? I'm really concerned about the access and the impact on the road network, because we've all seen, and we see, I think even this evening, traffic gridlocked wherever across the borough, and negating the comments by the Highways team really makes me wonder why you've done that, especially as you now said that the waiting for the MOU, which is something which should work towards reducing traffic, that there should be limited waiting put on that.
Thank you, Chairman. The policy context is policy PMD 9, which sets out that the Council will permit the development of new access or increased use of accesses only where it sets out a series of criteria. The highway objection is based upon the intensification of the access. But we as officers need to be mindful of the inspector's decision at the Abley Sports and Social Club public inquiry, where the inspector quotes, the outright presumption in policy PMD 9 against any new accesses onto a level 1 route is not consistent with a generally more permissive stance of the National Planning Policy Framework. So then we need to take that on board, and the National Policy Planning Framework states that development should only be refused on transport grounds where the residual or cumulative impacts of development are severe. The assessments which have come forward supporting the application proves that it's not severe, and it's subject to satisfactory sightlines being accommodated on the site, which can be controlled by condition. Then it follows that we shouldn't be raising an objection on PMD 9, because the NPPF essentially overrides that. The MOU, yes, we can give limited weight to that. The applicant is also putting forward off-site measures, essentially a little bit further down the road, which would address some of the concerns raised by local residents and mitigate some of the impact from that development. So, given the PMD 9 NPPF situation and the package that's been put forward by the applicant, that's what tips that balance.
Is it correct that Thurrock Council has a legal obligation to provide transport for children to go to school if over a certain distance, regardless of parents' financial circumstances?
Chair, I would suggest this is something that Janet might be able to assist with.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, that's correct. It's 3 miles for primary children, 2 miles for secondary. Sorry, 3 miles for secondary children, 2 miles for primary children.
Have you identified the potential cost of this on this proposed development as we say 50, 100 children wanting to go to school?
This development will generate a need for additional school places. Regarding the area of the development, the schools that serve that area are Horndon Primary School and William Edwards Secondary School. Both of those schools are currently full, so there's no additional capacity in the area.
So where would the children go to school, and would it cost us money to get taxis for them backwards and forwards?
Yes, it would. We'd have to look at, where we've got additional demand, where we can place those children. If we weren't able to do anything at the local schools to increase places, which is possibly unlikely with a village school, then we'd have to look at the next nearest school and see if there's capacity there. And it would cost us. Roughly the cost for a primary school place is roughly about 13,000, and for a secondary school place it is roughly just under 20,000, 19,700.
Is that per pupil?
Per pupil.
Thank you. Yeah, carry on, yeah. Is it correct the application does not comply with the national framework, as you cannot cycle or walk to it?
I think the report, in the introduction, we acknowledge that it is very finely balanced. The scheme isn't without its flaws, and the report, I think, goes some way illustrating some of the flaws. It is not the most sustainable location, but on its own, it's not something that would stand up as a standalone reason for refusal, because you couldn't walk or cycle to the site. That has to be weighed in the balance with the benefits of the scheme and with the fact that you can use Section 106 to lead certain measures as well.
So are you saying that it doesn't comply with the framework?
I'm saying that in terms of the NPPF sets out those broad overarching principles, and that on that element it certainly doesn't comply, and that's brought out in the report.
Thank you. My next one about permitted development 9 policy. Does the site comply with this, with a road width of 12 foot?
The sightlines that have been put forward on the actual proposals comply in the sense of technical compliance, but it may be that our highway officer would want to give you some comfort on that fact as well.
Thank you, Chair. The applicant has submitted a plan showing a simple bell-mouth junction onto the road. The traffic model that was accompanied with that design has identified that there is no significant queuing on the road. However, because it's of rural nature, we have raised concern with the intensification of use of that access, because it's effectively replacing the access for the equestrian centre with this access. So it has an intensification of use. We have raised concern with regards to the access and the amount of traffic that's using it.
Are those concerns mitigated in some way?
Thanks, Chair. We consider it's not suitable. So we have...
Protect Lower Donton Road. All of our objections have been submitted to planners. Tonight I'll focus on the hospice part of the application. Every taxpayer contributes to the hospice via NHS funding, so the decision is important. Why listen to what I've got to say? I live in Lower Donton Road, 300 metres from the site. I nurse dying patients in their own homes within Thurrock who are referred to me by St Luke's. I'd like to say we are not anti-hospice. are 4 objections to the hospice at the Little Malgroves Farm. First, the hospice is in the wrong location. Thurrock needs a hospice, but located centrally within the borough. Building it at the border, 3 miles from an existing hospice, doesn't make sense. The area is not densely populated, and this hospice needs to serve the majority of Thurrock residents. The location is wrong for another reason. When someone's dying, travelling time and distance matters if you want to reach them before they die. It has taken me an hour to travel from Averley to Lower Dunton Road on occasion. 2, inaccessibility. With no public transport, everyone drives. Lower Dunton Road is rural and impassable at times due to snow or flooding. Every winter I cancel shifts, so how will the hospice operate 24 hours a day, 365 days a year? The need for the hospice to be close to Basildon Hospital is not essential. Given the choice, most dying patients do not want or need acute interventions, resuscitation, or a bed in a hospital. Thirdly, Greenbelt. Greenbelt land should only be used in special circumstances. This application should not be considered as such. St Luke's has functioned in a town for 25 plus years, so the need for it to be on Greenbelt is idealistic. Building on this land will set a precedent for future applications. 4, concerns about funding 2 sites. St Luke's receives funding from various sources. In 2014, donations were down by 80,000, and St Luke's appealed for funds. If they had difficulty funding 8 beds, how are they going to fund 6 more? The application states that land is being set aside for future hospice clinical development. Could this indicate closing inpatient care at Basildon if Malgroves is developed later? St Luke's has various contracts with NHS commissioners. These are tenuous. For example, Basildon and Brentwood transferred £50,000 from St Francis Hospice funding in favour of St Luke's as it was cheaper. If true, then Thurrock patients are now competing with Brentwood patients for care provided by St Luke's. This would be even more unreasonable if Thurrock then sacrifices its Greenbelt land for Brentwood patients. St Luke says 2 hospices within close proximity will keep costs down. However, both sites have to function independently as a requirement of the Registered Homes Act. We know that St Luke's needs a developer to fund the scheme. Funding the building by the applicant is an altruistic short-term gesture. However, it's the long-term operating costs that will come to the taxpayer and donations. Research in 2014 concluded that hospices with less than 10 beds are not cost efficient. Is the building essentially then space for admin, fundraising, the hospice at home and first response staff? And will the training facilities be rented out to companies such as Southend Private District Nursing Service and Marie Curie instead of being utilised for inpatient care? The bottom line, councillors, don't be hoodwinked or play politics with this decision. The hospice is being used as leverage to secure planning permission for the houses.
Can I ask you to sum up, please?
Pardon?
Can I ask you to sum up, please?
Yeah, sure. Last sentence. The hospice provision emotionally enables 50 houses. No evidence that more inpatient beds are essentially required has been provided. So who will own the Greenbelt land after building? I wish to thank publicly those who supported our view over the last 18 months. And thank you for listening.
Well done.
The application before you tonight is the culmination of 10 years' work between St Luke's Hospice and Thurrock Council, and in turn St Luke's and Countryside. Before I discuss why this application is vital to St Luke's and our community, I wish to highlight the thorough and in-depth process of consultation. The need for a hospice is firmly rooted in adopted LDF policy. The suitability of Malgroves Farm is established in the Council's sustainability appraisal and site specification allocation works. Consequently, both the principle of development and the site has undergone considerable borough-wide consultation, as well as receiving member approval. Coupled with this was our own public exhibition and roadshow of the borough. Talking to people across Thurrock, it was heartening to hear just how many people have been touched directly or indirectly by St Luke's, demonstrating the strong support for this application. Our focus is on making sure the very best is offered to people in our community, especially those with any life-limiting illness. This not only means ensuring our high standards of care are maintained, but it also means ensuring we develop services for the future to meet the changing needs of our patients and their families, carers and the wider community, and funding will be available. Significant demographic changes and population growth mean we must act now to ensure that we are able to continue to deliver the end-of-life care that people deserve and need. I would challenge those people who have approached me stating that Malgroves Farm is not the right location, believing that a central location would be more suitable. This is not the case. This development opportunity is unique and different, and delivering hospice care in a tranquil setting is key to our future plans. The continuation of greenbelt status of the surrounding land, both within and on the boundary of the development, provides us with, and the people we care for, with assurance of ongoing tranquility. The proposed hospice is an extension of our current site. It is not intended to be an independent standalone hospice. Therefore, being in close proximity to our existing site at 2.5 miles enables us to share resources, releasing more of our income to spend on direct patient care. Other identified sites were not suitable. All were within an urban setting, or would have seen our hospice form part of a much larger, busier and noisier residential development. This plan has been years in the making, and we are confident that the proposals in front of you tonight can deliver for local people and provide the facilities required for Thurrock. Partnering with the countryside means we can deliver a new hospice now, with no cost to us, rather than waiting for years to raise the capital ourselves. We've been overwhelmed by the level of support we've received from people across Thurrock, and I am aware that many of you have shown your support for the hospice over the years, for which we wholeheartedly thank you. By showing your support for us, you're helping local people living with a serious illness or facing death maintain their quality of life and be as comfortable as possible. Failure to support this will be a regressive step for service developments. I ask you to support us once more, thereby reinforcing the Council's commitment to providing a hospice in Thurrock by approving this application.
Back to the 2011 core strategy in terms of being a substantive decision, and that was the in-principle decision. Lee will remind me of the policy number, but the in-principle decision to a strategic decision rather than a site-specific issue to provide a hospice in Thurrock.
Okay. And if you'd just like to answer that question for me.
Thank you, Chair. The policy that Andy is referring to is Core Strategy Policy CSTP 11, which supports in principle the provision of a hospice location to be set out in the site allocations DPD, which then rolled to the 2013 draft.
Okay. And I recall a meeting of the 28th of November 2012, which was site-specific allocations policy document that went to full council, which I actually left a meeting for the duration of the evening. Obviously being chair of planning and also of pecuniary interest, one of the agenda items there. Can you actually confirm whether all councillors at that meeting actually supported that site-specific allocations document, or whether there was any reference by any councillor that was sat at that meeting that was against this site-specific policy?
Chair, forgive me, I don't have that detailed information at hand, but clearly the majority of councillors, if not all, were in favour of that, but I can't recall whether there were any people who voted against it, members who voted against it, or whether there were any people who deferred to vote on that matter, but certainly the majority were in favour, and that's why the document went through.
And once that allocations policy moved on, where did it end up being? What process did it go to then?
It went out for public consultation, Chair, and then ultimately in the spring of last year, the Council made a decision to park its work on that document and other documents in favour of progressing an integrated local plan.
All right, okay. Any further questions? And there isn't any, so I'll now like to move on to the debating side of it. Councillor Kelly, you'd like to open up the debate?
Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me to open the debate. Well, first of all, the application, I think really it comes down to two things. The application itself, if we take the Greenbelt out of the equation, it's a pretty impressive application. We need a hospice here in Thurrock. I do think we need executive homes, bigger homes. It's nice to see an application come to the committee that has so many. Whether we like it or not, we do have a quota that we need to meet. And of course, if we don't put the homes here, obviously they're going to need to go somewhere else. Now, it may be that they're not put there, it may be that they're put elsewhere in Thurrock. But they're the sort of arguments that we need to be taken very seriously when it comes to the decision for this application. And then, of course, it comes to the arguments, and this is Greenbelt. I think it's always a big line to cross when you're approving applications like this in the Greenbelt zone. And obviously the education side of things concern me. Just a few last points. I think the access to the hospice, it being in central Thurrock, I'm not quite sure being in central Thurrock is the right thing, because obviously travelling through central Thurrock can sometimes be very, very difficult. And then in relation to the highways concerns, obviously whilst I do really respect highways and the hard work they put in, there are areas of Thurrock that are really gridlocked on many occasions, and that is off the back of many years of decisions made. So at this late stage, I'm still undecided. I think it's an absolutely fantastic application, but it's in Greenbelt and education is a concern, and I'm hoping my colleagues on the committee can help me make my decision within the next 20 minutes or so. Thank you.
Nicest, most recognised areas of Thurrock, and we haven't got many green belt sites that we can feel satisfied with. We've seen a lot of our green belt destroyed in some ways or the other, whether it's been landfill or mining, and I think it will be a disgrace, quite honestly, to see this particular area to be plundered by housing development. It is true, we're told that we need this hospice, and we need a hospice to serve Thurrock, but not in that location. Not in that location. I think it categorically states at 6.9.69 on page 41, it's a straightforward matter to conclude proposal constitutes an inappropriate development within the green belt. And we've been very protective towards our green belt, certainly in this particular area. I remember very small developments not too far from there where we've actually turned it down because of it being in green belt. And obviously this application has come forward on the back of 50 houses and nearly 10 hectares of green belt to be built over. Well, if we were going to give up green belt, let's find less conspicuous and less delightful green belt rather than spoil this particular area. And as far as the Lower Dunham Road is concerned, I travel the Dunham Road quite regular. It's narrow and it has become quite busy because it's been a cut through for some while now, and I was imagining it will continue, and I think this will add to the safety of this access. And of course there's no transport link to this development, and therefore I'm not minded to support the application in its present form.
Yes. Well, when you look at this, we have to go back to, this is actually in our core strategy. So it has been through the council 3 times, and unanimous support was given at every occasion. Now, when we start from that, and it's also been examined in public by an inspector, so it's gone through the government procedures. So we start from that premise. We recognise that in our strategy we need a hospice. Where would you put a hospice? If you're unfortunate and you do contract cancer, and it's a horrible illness. When I was mayor, I went to Little Haven, and Little Haven is in another borough. And whereas Little Haven is in a very tranquil, rural type setting. So I would suggest to the committee is this is what we need. It has to be in a rural setting to give that tranquility to people. Now, of course, then you move on to the subject about the enabling development. we do have to face the facts, unfortunately, that as a country, we're told constantly that there are this magical word called austerity. And in austerity, we have to cut back. So public provision for a hospice is not actually able to provide a hospice. So what we have here is the next best thing. We have an enabling development. Now, you can argue where it could be, etc., what have you, but it's quite clear the officers have gone through this, and on the balance, they're saying to us as members that in their opinion, and we have to respect the professionalism of our officers, in their opinion, the application should be granted.
Rise up to what's going on around you in this country. You know, I mean, there's been an issue that's been raised on Radio 5 only a couple of days ago, where the green belt is being absolutely decimated by the current national planning policies that are being allowed to happen. They're encouraging people to build in green belt. So that's not hide away from the fact that it's just Thurrock Council. You know, you want to actually go to places like Chelmsford, Great Dunmow, you would never believe what's going on before your eyes. Building in the middle of woodland. It's quite unbelievable. So we mustn't just forget that it's just Thurrock that's succumbing to building in Greenbelt, because it's not. It's everywhere that's happening.
Don't be different. Don't succumb.
So, if anybody else wants to debate. Okay, sir? Yeah? And those against? And abstentions. Okay then, so we'll recap then that reference number 14/000990/FUL, Little Mulgraves Farm, Lower Dunton Road, Langdon, has been approved. I would also like to add that although this has been approved at Thurrock Council's Planning Committee, this will now be making its way to Birmingham, to the National Planning Policy Casework Unit, for them to look into.